All right, is it working? Hello, hello, beautiful people. We're it's another diarrhea live stream, you guys. Here we go. Um, yeah, figuring out how to you can schedule a live stream and then figuring out how to get back into YouTube's back end to actually start the live stream is an adventure that we are having. I do this once a week, and so that's just enough time to forget. But we're here now. Uh, Hang on, I gotta pull up my notes. I took notes for this one, you guys. I prepped. There's props. We got a whiteboard. We have markers. We're ready to go. Let me pull up my notes here. How's everybody doing? All right. So, is the production value going up? We got a whiteboard. We're hitting the big time. Uh, let's see. Yeah, welcome to the Diarrhea Science Show. Now with props. We're having a great time, you guys. All right, so it has been a huge week in diarrhea news. Um, I don't want to, I don't like to run around going scandal, but some decisions have been made in how to handle PR and giving out information to the public by Taylor Farms that are just really interesting. Just a quick review. Taylor Farms is a really big player in the lettuce market. They're one of the biggest, if not the biggest, company that sells lettuce in the US and in North America. And as a result, they've kind of been a big player in the last 20 years as we realized, oh, lettuce is prone to outbreaks. Taylor Farms has been one of the driving forces in trying to keep that from happening in some very specific ways. And so they helped start institutions like the Center for Produce Safety, where there's very real scientists doing very good science over there. I know some of those people, they're doing legit stuff. That was in part a Taylor Farms project because everybody who's selling a lot of produce, you don't want there to be an outbreak because even if it's not you, people are going to stop buying lettuce for a while. So in theory, everybody in the industry is really motivated to keep outbreaks down. And so Taylor Farms had been doing a lot of that. There's also something called the California Leafy Greens Marketing Agreement, which is a mouthful, but if you work in produce, if you're a farmer in the United States and you want to sell lettuce at any outlet bigger than a farmer's market stall, you have to do a lot of extra testing and audit steps to confirm that you're using clean water on your lettuce. You're not using manure. You have bathrooms for your workers. Common sense stuff. The California Leafy Greens Marketing Agreement is like, look, if you want to sell like a big boy to big boy stores, you got to follow all this stuff. Taylor Farms is a big force behind that. So with that being your legacy, and they've had outbreaks before. And people kind of make a big deal out of it, like, oh, they've had outbreaks before. I don't think you can move as much lettuce as Taylor Farms moves without having some every once in a while. And the previous ones, they'd responded pretty responsibly. They started a recall sooner in the process than they did this time. They'd say out of an abundance of precaution, we don't know for sure if it's us yet, but we're going to do a recall anyway, just in case. So they know how to handle an outbreak. And then this time is just completely different. And going into why, I think it's more into psychology than science, which is what I actually know. But I do want to let you know, like, this is unusual. Like, the way they're handling this outbreak is unusual, even for them. Again, I'm not a PR person, so I can't totally pick the response apart. I'm like, oh, why would they be doing it this way instead of that way? But this is different. And how different it is, just to give you a scale, I was talking to folks about this on Blue Sky. And I mentioned, like, on the scale of this should not have happened. If you've seen The Wire, and spoilers for a 10, 20-year-old show, imagine this is like if Omar, this is like after a lifetime of successfully robbing drug dealers and a robust career of that, Omar getting, one-shotted in a corner store by a 6-year-old. But this is how that should not have happened. This is. So just for some context. Oh, congrats, username at Joné Lillard for warning someone in the line at Aldi. Might have saved them from a round in the bathroom or several rounds. Good job. See, this is why we talk about this, right? The Cyclospora outbreak, as far as I know, and I'm a couple days behind on this, so maybe something has changed, but as far as I know, we've had thousands of people fallen ill with this, but nobody's died yet, which is a little unusual for a diarrheal illness. It's about standard for Cyclospora, though. It's a very persistent diarrhea. It's a very explosive, hard to control diarrhea. Sometimes not all diarrhea is explosive, right? I think the dividing line for that is like, can you hold it in or not? Cyclospora is kind of famous for you can't stop it from happening, right? So it's a very persistent and insistent diarrhea, but it doesn't really kill people. And as far as I know, that has stayed the same through this outbreak. There's a lot of people ill for a long time, very ill, but nobody's died yet, which is unusual for diarrheas because some of them can just nuke your intestinal lining. You're bleeding out your butt. It can put toxins into your bloodstream that will mess up your kidneys. There are diarrheal illnesses that can do all of that. Cyclospora doesn't. You just have diarrhea on and off for a long time, and it's very insistent. So that's interesting. Um, but yeah, like this is just that's a big outbreak. There's a lot going on here. Um, and I want to talk about kind of get more into depth on not just here's what's in the news, but here's how the investigation works so we can kind of understand what's going on. Because the news this week has been confusing. There was like, oh, FDA found a positive. Oh, they didn't. It was a false positive. And, what does that actually mean? What actually happened? How can you get a false positive and you're still sure you know where the outbreak came from? What's going on here? So we're going to talk. I think we're going to spend most of our time today talking about that. Um, and I also want to talk about there's been a lot of, how come Taco Bell is better at the FDA and CDC's job than the FDA and CDC? And I will say Taco Bell's not doing their job. Taco Bell is doing Taco Bell's job. This is basic corporate responsibility, is knowing what you sold to whom and being able to figure out what happened if there's a problem. That's basic corporate responsibility. That's not Taco Bell doing extra homework. That's basic corporate responsibility that everybody should have been doing. And Taco Bell actually did it. FDA and CDC, for one thing, have been getting gutted. Not just by Doge, but before that, like even before Doge happened, there's not a lot of enthusiasm for funding public health until there's an outbreak. And then we're enthusiastic about it for a couple of years, and then it kind of falls off our radar, out of sight, out of mind. So there's some Doge stuff that has happened. And it's not the same Doge stuff that people were initially reporting on. There's different Doge stuff that actually gutted the CDC and FDA responses to this. But in terms of like tracing back, through Taco Bell, this is where it came from. That was not Taco Bell doing the FDA and CDC's job. That was Taco Bell doing Taco Bell's job. And the fact that we are surprised by that and we think that's impressive tells you the level of service and competence we have come to expect from larger companies. That's actually what they should all be able to do. So that's interesting. FDA and CDC was not. So FDA and CDC had a hard time and are still having a hard time tracking this because all of their poop nerds have been fired. Doge just fired a lot of the people who do all this. And we'll talk about this in more detail kind of later in the live stream. But this is part of why they're so slow, is the people who do all this stuff have been fired. The people who are left are doing their best. And I don't think they're sleeping a whole lot right now. So I don't like to bag on FDA and CDC because I know some of the people who work there and they're not having a good time. They don't need a live streamer going, hey, what's wrong with you? Yeah. It's just like some interesting gossip about Taco Bell going on in the chat here. But FDA and CDC, the folks who work there are doing their best. It is the fact that they're running on fumes. And then a lot of the people who used to be running on fumes aren't even there anymore. Also, when it comes to actually doing the traceability and like tracking product through, to do that, to find, okay, Taco Bell was traced to some of the cases. How do we find out where Taco Bell got this from? Because Taco Bell doesn't grow the lettuce. They didn't start this. It just kind of passed through their system. Any salmonella updates? I have not had a chance to get like on top of the salmonella. We're gonna that might be for next week. I think we don't know much about that outbreak besides it's happening. So it's kind of hard to say much. It's a little frustrating because there's breaking news and you're like, well, when we know more, we'll know more. It's really bad. Yeah, pass through their system indeed. They had a comment about, yeah. So this Cyclospora infected or contaminated lettuce passed through the Taco Bell system. In order to find out where it came from, you need all their invoices. You need Taco Bell's, track record of we bought all this lettuce from this place and then we distributed it through our supply chain to the following restaurants. That's all in Taco Bell system. FDA and CDC doesn't have Taco Bell's receipts and invoices, And so it's just like if you needed to audit somebody's taxes, the IRS can't like snap their fingers and know what's going on. You have to call the person up and say, I need to see your files. It's the same thing, right? And so Taco Bell actually had all their invoices and receipts to figure out, okay, and this is kind of where the whiteboard baby is going to come in. And I don't know how I'm going to do the whiteboard and this thing at the same time. I don't have a setup right. I can't just sit this down like a normal person. So it's whatever. You said production values were going up, and I wasn't so sure. This is why. I'm going to try and do like this is how we do a trace back. This is how Taco Bell is able to find out, okay, we got reported through here. Where did we get this from? Like what food product was it? Where did it come from? And then how do we, once we know what food product it is, where else did that food product go? Because this lettuce with Cyclospora on it went to all kinds of places, not just Taco Bell. So it got sold, I think Taco Bell might have gotten it from Cisco. And if it's getting sold to Cisco, it's going everywhere, right? In addition to other companies, like Walmart. There's a whole list of places that got there's all kinds of places that got this contaminated lettuce. Taco Bell just got, I think, pointed out first because the first step in an outbreak investigation is you talk to people who had illness and you say, where did you eat for the last month? Because that's sometimes how long it takes for this thing to incubate, up to 2 weeks. And then it can be a while before they go to the doctor and actually have an interview done, right? So you can be talking a month ago. Where did you eat a month ago? You're not going to remember unless maybe it was a place that we think of, haha, makes you poop weird, Taco Bell. I think that's why Taco Bell got in first, because the lettuce actually went to a ton of places. Taco Bell was just like a sliver of where this stuff went to. So we're going to take a second. We're going to try and draw some maps. Wish me luck, you guys. We're not an artist, so we're going to try and make this work. So we're going to draw a little picture of these United States. This is bad, but we're doing it, like courage. Courage is not about being good at the thing. It's about doing it even though you're bad. Florida is way too big. Hang on. We got thrown off with Florida here, but we're going to make it work. All right. So here's the US. There she is. It's backwards. That's fun. Is it? I don't know. No, it's not. Okay. You just my brain kind of shuts down when it's on live stream. So half the time the camera's backwards, and I've done it so much that you kind of, you get your left and right mixed up with streaming because sometimes your camera automatically flips it around for you and you get used to adjusting. And so you're like, you have to stop and think, is this actually backwards? So this is roughly right where the outbreak has been. It's kind of been in the Great Lakes region. So we've had some cases. The first cases in May were in more like upstate New York. Now we're having a lot of cases in North Carolina that don't seem to be related. It's a different cluster of Cyclospora. But the main outbreak area we're looking at is kind of up here. We've got Michigan is the main one. There's a lot of Ohio and other states, I think Indiana around there. So imagine you're the FDA or CDC and you're just looking at this like, okay, we got to figure this out. So your first step is you got to talk to patients in that area. You find them by talking to doctors, by talking to local public health departments. And a lot of this investigation is actually done by the state public health departments. So the Michigan State Public Health Department, the Ohio Public Health Department, they're following up with patients, either because they're in a database, the doctors put them there, or you call the doctors and emergency rooms up and you say, hey, who have you got that we need to follow up with? And you just start calling people. It is just shoe leather detective work. And you just call people and you say, do you remember what you ate 2 to 4 weeks ago? And people do their best to try and remember, because that's the only clue you've got right now. People do their best to try and remember. Taco Bell is going to come up a lot just because we have, we kind of associate it with weird things happening in the bathroom. And by the way, I want to point out, so a lot of people will say, oh yeah, I always have weird bathroom situations after I eat at Taco Bell. Their food safety program, as we see here, is actually quite good. That's often that's going to be not from people getting sick. That's from Taco Bell has more fiber than a lot of fast food, right? That's going to make you poop different if you don't normally eat a lot of fiber because of the beans. And then also because their ground beef for the tacos also, I think, has some oats in it, which you think, oh, that's weird. But the reason is you got to keep that meat warm enough. You have to keep it hot so that it doesn't start having a food poisoning problem. You don't have stuff growing in it. You have to keep it above a certain temperature. Well, ground beef that's just kept hot all day can get just kind of dry and weird and chewy. And so if you put some oats in there, it helps it stay moist. Like it's a better texture than just meat, right? That's why they do that. Um, so regardless of how you feel about whether that's what you want in your meat, it does mean there's more fiber in it than people are used to sometimes, especially people who tend to eat a lot of fast food. I think for some people, maybe Taco Bell might be the highest fiber component of their day, perhaps, you know? And so you can maybe notice that you're pooping different. And it's not because Taco Bell made you sick, it's because maybe Taco Bell is healthier than what you may have been eating otherwise. Um, there's also a trend where people tend to eat Taco Bell after they've drunk a lot, right? They like to pair it with some ethanol. And drinking a lot will also make you poop weird. And saying that I drink so much that I pooped crazy makes it sound like you have a problem. But if you say Taco Bell made me poop crazy, then it sounds like Taco Bell has a problem. So, sometimes that's that's where that comes from. So, uh, yeah, we just a stray point going by. At Stray Iggy TV, why would local just be automatically safer? As if local farms can't be unclean. As a small local farmer, I actually have to agree here. There's not a force field that compels us to wash our hands. We can be sloppy if we want to be, okay? And a lot of folks who run local farms or work there kind of tend to feel like, well, we're just better than that. We don't have to really focus on those things because we're pure by nature. And that can actually lead to some really sloppy stuff happening. Um, so that's fun. Anyway, we were talking about Taco Bell. So Taco Bell kind of got a reputation, can get a reputation for making you poop funny just because there's fiber in it. And also people tend to drink a lot and then eat Taco Bell sometimes. And so Taco Bell kind of gets painted with this, like, the place that makes you poop weird. And I think that's why when you're talking to all your people who got Cyclospora and you're trying to have them remember what they ate a month ago, Taco Bell is going to come up more often than not, right? That's going to get a little disproportionately remembered. So that was the starting point. Right. This is what state health departments are working with. And as they're kind of figuring this out, they're reporting to the CDC and FDA. So that's another thing is CDC and FDA, their role in this is often more collecting data from the states than it is necessarily driving the outbreak investigation. They'll provide support services to the states. So that's another reason that their numbers are kind of behind what the states are reporting. Getting a Cyclospora case registered with FDA and CDC, it's a little bit like the Vatican canonizing a saint. There's a whole process they have to go through. And so it takes a little bit longer than the states finding those cases. The CDC and FDA have to do their own confirmation process. So that's part of why you'll also see those numbers quite not line up. The issue is not that the FDA is not looking for Cyclospora. The issue is the people who do that got fired. It's not that the FDA is not trying. And then also a lot of the actual investigation is up to the state health departments, which, by the way, are also gruesomely underfunded. So there's just a lot of failures at all levels. And we'll get into the politics of how that happens later. We're still trying to explain how we find an outbreak, right? So this is how an outbreak investigation works. This is how you go from like this, like we have a map. Okay, how do we go from this to where did it come from, right? So the first thing that really comes up in all these interviews, the only consistent thing that comes up is Taco Bell. Not because Taco Bell made this problem happen, but because that's an easy thing for people to remember if they pooped weird. They're like, Taco Bell. So then you're a state health department and you say, all right, Taco Bell, you keep coming up. Can you help us out? So Taco Bell has a choice. You can either cooperate with law enforcement or you could go, nah, we don't want to do that, right? I think they can be compelled. But some companies are happier to, they're more enthusiastic and more proactive about helping than others. It sounds like Taco Bell was very on the ball. And I mean, you can kind of take two positions, right? As a company, you can clam up and say, I don't want to help. I don't want information about this together because I'm afraid that I'll be found liable and I'll get sued for bajillions of dollars, right? You can also say, well, obviously I'm not growing any of this food. I need to find out where it came from too, so I can stop buying from that place. And if you are proactive as a company, that also may help you when they will get sued, right? Being proactive can help with just showing that, like, yeah, we're actually trying to solve this. We're not trying to cover anything up. So that there's actually good reasons for a company to be very proactive about cooperating with authorities on finding where the diarrhea came from. So Taco Bell did that. And The first cases started popping up in May, but that was in upstate New York, and I think that was actually turns out to be a different cluster. The Great Lakes cluster looks like the Taco Bell based cluster. Looks like it might be a different cluster of Cyclospora. So anyway, and this is also why Taco Bell kind of got the attention first before Taylor Farms, because the first step in the investigation is interviewing people. And when you interview people, they're not going to go, well, here's all the months worth of food that I ate. And I recall that some of it was random shredded lettuce from this company that may or may not have their name on the product. That's not going to happen. You're going to remember the consumer facing name brand. So that's another reason Taco Bell kind of got the attention first. We got a comment from somebody coming in late. I was hearing this morning that North Carolina is now finding cases being tied to parsley and cilantro. Does that mean we have additional suppliers or farm locations? Yeah, I think it's pretty clear at this point. We have multiple Cyclospora outbreaks going on at the same time. So happy 2026. The single biggest one is this Taylor Farms one, but it is looking like, yeah, herbs is a pretty, why did the light just flash? That's weird. Okay. Herbs are also a pretty common product to be tied back to Cyclospora, just because they grow low on the ground where dirty water can reach them, and you can't scrub them clean, and they're often not cooked. So that's fun. I was going to plant cilantro on the farm this year, and then we just ran out of time before it got hot. So, bullet dodged / opportunity missed. This is agriculture. Let's see, where were we? So Taco Bell gets noticed, and then Taco Bell has to go, where did we get this from? So here's how Taco Bell finds out where they got their stuff from, right? So this is how Taco Bell does their traceability. What you're going to do is you're going to say, hey, a lot of these cases have been tied back to a restaurant, so let's find which ones. And you plot down which restaurants on a map, right? You kind of go, how are we going to do this? I need to find a different color of ink. Maybe that's what we're going to try and do. All right. Is this going to show up? And go. We're going to find out, guys, if this shows up on the camera. I'm excited. So now you can't see. You can see like little pink marks. So that's where the Taco Bell stores are. I'm not very happy with how that turned out. That's very difficult to see. Let's try a bigger marker. Yeah, that'll work. Sure, maybe. So I'm Taco Bell, and can we see? Yes, okay, we can kind of see that. So I can go, hey, the state health department's found that we have cases tied to specific restaurants. That's another clue. Then we can start to go through these restaurants' records and invoices, and we can see, hang on, sorry, I skipped a step. So once you know which restaurants, right, you can also talk to your patients and you say, what did you get at Taco Bell? And you'll write down what they got. And they may have noticed that a lot of them were the items that have lettuce in them. I know Taco Bell has a lot of things that have lettuce and a lot of things that don't. I think like burrito type items will not have lettuce in them so much. Anyway, bottom line, they noticed that not 100%, but most of the patients who got sick had items with lettuce in them at some specific stores. So that can start to tell you, we need to find out where the lettuce from these specific stores came from. And you go and you look through your invoices and your receipts and you go, interesting, they all came from Taylor Farms. And then you call up Taylor Farms and you go, hey, the inspectors are coming. So it looks like that conversation was had. And so that's how Taco Bell winds up kind of being first identified in this chain. But they're not where it came from. They didn't cause this. Taco Bell had to find out, where did we get it from? And it's sourced back to Taylor Farms. So all the restaurants that were most strongly tied with the outbreak got their lettuce from a single supplier. Then that's how you start to know it's we're looking at a source. So there's a timeline here, right? Because Cyclospora takes a while to incubate, right? It takes 1 to 2 weeks to make you sick. And then think of how often you get the runs and you don't immediately go to the hospital or the doctor about it, right? So most of the people who are sick may not have even been to the doctor about it yet. So people get sick. It takes 1 to 2 weeks. And then you have to be sick long enough to go to the doctor. And then the public health department has to start an investigation and call you. So by the time, you know, we're talking to patients about something that they might have eaten a month ago. And then the lettuce they ate a month ago was harvested maybe a week before that. So there's a whole ping pong of events you have to trace your way through. So there's a timeline here. And this will happen a lot with lettuce. By the time that you notice there's an outbreak, all the lettuce that caused the outbreak has already been eaten or thrown away because it doesn't last very long, right? It's not like ground beef that can sit in freezers for months and months. It is a perishable product. By the time you find out there's a problem, it's all either been eaten or it's gone bad and been thrown away. So it's tough to test for it. Um, I think we've all watched enough CSI that I think a lot of us have kind of been taught accidentally by TV that the way science works is you test a thing and then you know if it's guilty or not. You can't do that with lettuce because it's perishable. By the time you know you need to test it, it's already gone, which led to FDA going. I think it can be challenging for FDA to get the authority sometimes to seize product and test it because that really makes farmers and the food industry really mad. They don't like it when people interfere with their business like that. But because we were pretty sure this was Taylor Farms product coming from farmers in Mexico, FDA could intercept new stuff coming across the border. So that's when they started doing testing, right? So now we're getting into that false positive thing, right? So most or all of the lettuce that was probably causing this outbreak is already gone, right? By the time we start doing investigation. But just to make sure, like to see if it's still ongoing, if we're still getting contaminated lettuce, you know, if it's still coming into the country from this farm, if this farm is still having a problem, maybe we can try and catch that. So that's why FDA started testing lettuce coming in from Taylor Farms across the border, right? This is like really, guys, like getting stuff straight on camera is really hard. Just FYI, be nice to your streamers. But yeah, so stuff is coming across the border. And so FDA is like, look, as a federal agency, we can intercept it there and we can test it to see if this problem is still ongoing and if we can catch it. So that's what FDA was testing. It's lettuce coming across the border way after the outbreak actually started. And who knows if it's even from the same farm that started it, right? But just in case, we're going to do some screening at the border. So the FDA does some testing and and they caught what has now been reported as a false positive. I don't think we have enough details on what went wrong with the testing that they decided to declare that a false positive. So I can't speak to that one way or the other. I know it is suspicious that Taylor Farms went to the White House and then suddenly it's a false positive. I think that's also suspicious. But at the same time, like false positives can happen. So I don't think we have enough information to say like, oh, that's for sure a bribery result. What I do know for sure is that Taylor Farms said, see, FDA said it wasn't us, and they apologized. And that is not what happened. FDA just said that was a false positive, and it's not even the lettuce that was responsible for the outbreak, so it doesn't make any difference. We still have all this tracing, right? We still have the epidemiology and like traceback that tells us it was Taylor Farms. It just wasn't that specific batch of lettuce, which we already knew because it's coming across the border weeks, if not months after the outbreak started. So it's a totally different batch of lettuce. The FDA was just screening stuff coming across the border to see if they could catch more. So the FDA can go, oh, our bad, that test was a false positive, and it doesn't exonerate Taylor Farms at all. And it is crazy that they wrote a press release claiming that. So there's just, like I said, when I say this has been a very drama-filled case, this has been a very juicy and eventful week in diarrhea news, that is crazy. A place like Taylor Farms usually has been professional enough to not get out and jump the gun like that and say, the FDA apologized to me when they absolutely did not. Taylor Farms knows better than this. And yet they're behaving this way. That's really interesting. And this, was it Zachary Mullen 7279, thank you. Poo for the poo god. Stew lettuce, let us know how that works out. Oh, let us know how that works out. There are recipes for like sauteing lettuce. I've never tried them, but allegedly if you do it right, they're really good. A lot of them are like East Asian, like stir fry type things, or just like really light sauteing, because they're traditionally, in a lot of the world, it's customary to cook your leafy greens and other things that grow on the ground before you eat them, because if you don't have really good modern sanitation, if you don't have clean drinking water, if you don't have flush toilets, if you don't have hand washing, this is what happens. Diarrhea is kind of our default as a species. And so that's why it's traditional to cook your veggies. So there are recipes out there. Enjoy exploring this cuisine. It's a thing I haven't had a chance to get into yet, but I think a lot of people are about to. Um, let's see, where were we? Okay. So the false positive and then the ensuing news debacle. This part has been crazy. It's obviously, as a federal agency, you don't want to mix up a test and have to retract it publicly. That's not ideal. Um, so I would have thought they had some quality checks, but also like the FDA has been gutted. CDC has been gutted. A lot of the people who used to work there to work with parasite diseases like Cyclospora have been fired. They were fired by Doge because they worked with USAID. We can get into that in a second. But a lot of the professionals that we had tracking parasite diseases like Cyclospora have been fired because they did too much tropical medicine. They were hired through USAID and they're gone now, which means the testing capacity, we don't have. Cyclospora is already really hard to test for. And now a lot of the people who are good at testing for it are off in the wind, unemployed, not working at CDC anyway. So, I see a lot of conspiracy thinking around the false positive. I'm like, that's certainly possible. Like, I wouldn't put it past the Trump White House to try that kind of thing. But also, these agencies have actually been gutted. They are actually down a lot of the people who would do this testing. So sometimes it's not a conspiracy theory. Sometimes people who don't want regulation actually get regulation and make it not work good. Sometimes that happens too. All that being said, we have a false positive that still does not let Taylor Farms off the hook because all the outbreak tracing that we have on deck, this stuff all still happened. We still have like a lot of evidence tying them back to the thing. So I think we're still trying to get a hold of samples that actually came from those contaminated batches of lettuce during the time that the outbreak would have been caused. We may not ever get those samples. That is just the nature of lettuce. It's eaten or thrown away so quickly that there may not be any left, right? But so like when you're doing an outbreak investigation, that is often how it works. Is you never, if you're thinking of it like a CSI investigation where you find the sample and it tests positive, and that's how you know. That kind of forensics doesn't happen with very perishable foods because the smoking gun is either eaten or rotting in a landfill by the time you go looking for it. That's not great, but you can still do this trace back and just see like who got it, where, when, where did they eat, and then what are the commonalities, where did they get their food from. That is often how we do outbreak investigations with really perishable stuff like vegetables, raw milk. That's how we do these outbreak investigations for really, really perishable food items. So that's been a rundown on how this traceback thing works. And I'm trying to, where are we going to go next? I got to get some water. You got to stay hydrated when you're talking about diarrhea. So, ooh, okay. So another thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, okay. Somebody has a recipe for what you do with lettuce if you have to cook it. This is at Storm Nico. I'd like to introduce everyone to my beautiful wife. Lightly cooked lettuce with dilute oyster sauce. Quick blanch like you might do with broccoli. So there you go. Yeah, I don't know. We're at a beautiful time in history where we have to relearn how to cook lettuce, you guys. Here we are. Let's see, how long till it's over? That is a great question. When people get Cyclospora, so it only comes from human sewage, right? You can't get it from livestock. It doesn't come from animals. It's just human sewage. And then it does this fun little thing where the infection kind of comes and goes. You'll have diarrhea horribly for a few days, and then you get better. And you're like, I'm cured. I'm good. And then it comes back. And it just keeps going away and relapsing and going away and relapsing. And that's part of what makes it so difficult to get people to go to the doctor about it. You have to have relapse a few times before you go, wait, I don't think this is going away. And you go to the doctor. This is part of why it takes so long for people to show up at the doctor's office, and it draws out the timeline of finding this thing. It's also part of what makes it so easy to spread it in the farm is, as a farm worker, you're not supposed to come to work if you have diarrhea because you don't want to poop on your product. You don't want to poop your pants while you're picking your fruits and vegetables. But it goes away and comes back, right? So you think you're good, and then you come back to work, and it's back. So that's a big part of how this is so persistent. Um, how it can show up on farms is people think they're good to go back to work, and then you find out you're not. Somebody had a question: Why are we holding the mic? Because my desk does not have room for the notes, all the wires. There's a ton of wires here. If I move wrong and I hit this thing, it's not good. Um, I have put all of my, I think, as a YouTuber, as you gain an audience, you're supposed to, if you and get ad money through YouTube and Patreon and stuff, you're supposed to put that into getting a better setup. I screwed up and I put it into running a farm. So, the production values are coming along, but perhaps at a different pace than a lot of YouTubers might do with. Um, this is it's just an interesting. I don't want to say struggle. Things are it's a living. We're doing fine. But in terms of time and energy, where do you put it, right? Because are we a YouTuber who happens to have a farm, or are we a farmer who happens to have a YouTube channel? Where do we put our energy into like maximizing doing as well as we can? So I have a lapel mic, I have a USB lapel mic. The sound quality is just not very good, and so I went back to this thing. Um, da, 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 da. Yeah. Also, like holding the mic is yeah. I kind of need something to do with my hands, so that's part of it too. I'm like, this isn't really a problem that needs solving. I need something to do with my hands. Um, Talking without something in your hands feels weird. You need something to wave around. Although it's probably not ideal to do it with the mic because then your sound goes and it's not great. Um, anyway, I have a desk boom somewhere. I hate it. Like this room is someone's about to move out of our house because they're going to college, and I'm just waiting until we have more space. Basically, like getting the space set up for optimizing shooting like just doesn't totally make sense because the space situation is about to change a lot. So um, thank you, Karen Callwhite 6018. Your equipment setup is just fine. There's so this is a fun thing that you learn running any kind of business. The number of things that you could do to make something better are basically infinite. There's always something you could be doing better, and you kind of have to pick and choose. And if your setup is kind of janky for doing video, it's like, well, then your videos look kind of janky. If your farm is janky, people can die. So, if your farm is janky, you can cause diarrhea that goes through Taco Bell, and then you get traced because Taco Bell is professional. So the risk reward of doing a janky YouTube setup versus doing a farm janky, I have chosen to sacrifice YouTube. It's true. This is Snowball, and I put blue tape on it because the red light glaring up is annoying. Anyway, we were talking about diarrhea. We're going to hydrate real quick. Hang on a second. Something I talked to my farm clients a lot about back when I was doing a lot more consulting is if you're starting out doing something new, you have got to be okay with it being janky. It's like making pancakes. The first time you do it, it's going to be ugly. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you're bad at pancakes. It just means it was your first one. Um, and so I kind of tell people like, we're just practicing what we preach over here. It's not going to look like a full production glam setup right away. I like to focus on having something to say. I feel like that comes first. So anyway, somebody had a question about Taco Bell switching suppliers. If I were them, I would do that because not only did I have a supplier who just sickened thousands of my customers, it looks like. So Taco Bell is probably going to get sued because Taco Bell didn't start the problem, but people still sue Taco Bell anyway. And then Taco Bell's going to have to turn around and sue Taylor Farms, and it's like a whole thing. Wholesale buyers like Taco Bell, like Costco, like all these companies, they just want to buy the product. They don't want to buy the product with a side serving of tort liability. They don't want to buy lawsuits from somebody else. And so it's kind of funny watching people go like, I'm never going to buy Taylor Farms again, but the wholesalers are good. You think the wholesalers want to keep doing business with somebody who, number one, just sickened thousands of their customers, exposed them to major lawsuits, and number three, threw them under the bus to save their own skins? I wouldn't. And the public can have kind of a short memory, right? The public is gonna remember most people for a couple years, and then a lot of us are gonna kind of forget. More crazy stuff is gonna happen that's gonna take our attention, right? You know how it is. It's after 2016, that's how it goes. Um, Wholesalers don't forget. They have one job. Like your wholesale customers, Taco Bell, their supply chain and sourcing department has one job, which is get the product and not lawsuits. If I were Taco Bell, I would not forgive and forget very easily. Now, there can be a challenge because Taylor Farms was such a large producer that it can be hard to avoid them, but also is it? A lot of what Taylor Farms actually like, Taylor Farms, I'm sure, has some actual farms, but most of their lettuce is coming from independent farms that they buy from. And so you can kind of cut out the middleman if Taylor Farms isn't doing any good for you anymore, right? Taylor Farms' job as a brand was to do quality assurance, to make sure that the lettuce from these farms was good. If Taylor Farms can't do quality assurance, then what's the point of them existing? So, as a wholesale buyer, I would be reevaluating my supply chain right now. If I had a contract with Taylor Farms, if I had, like a purchasing program set up, this would be a great time to reevaluate that. And yeah, it's funny because when I talk to people, they kind of assume that customers, like retail customers, are gonna be the ones to ditch Taylor Farms and wholesale buyers are gonna stick with them. I would not assume that. Having worked with companies like this, in the past and with companies that buy lettuce, if you have a vendor who's behaving like this, who's selling you shitty product, like literally shitty product, and then is trying to blame you for it to save their own skins, get out of here. That's not a good look. So that's just my personal opinion. As someone who is running supply chain, I think that's a pretty easy decision to make. I would be very happy if I were Taco Bell, right now. So, let's see. I'm just like checking through the comments here real quick. Name changes would work and how people can keep track of that. So this is at tjealous195. Just wondering if name changes would work and how people might feel about that. So this is a great question. Taylor Farms has a lot of different brands and labels, and they also sell wholesale to other lettuce companies that might slap their label on it. So this is another reason I think wholesalers might have actually an easier time getting rid of Taylor Farms than customers, like retail customers, right? Because you're at the grocery store, you really have to look to see if it's coming from Taylor Farms. If you are a wholesale buyer, it's a little easier to find out if you're buying from Taylor Farm. Um, if you're buying through Cisco and Cisco gets it from Taylor Farm, you might not necessarily know. But also, there's traceability. You should be able to actually check in with Cisco and find that out. Um, Wholesale buyers have like you're buying tons of lettuce at a time, and you have people whose job it is to source the product and vet it, right? So it is easier for you to double check that you're not buying from Taylor Farms than it is for a retail customer. That's another reason I think wholesale might actually have an easier time avoiding Taylor Farms than customers. For us as customers, obviously, like if it has Taylor Farms like packaging, that's easy. But I'm going to blank on their list of brands that they have. I don't want to say any and be wrong about it. But there's a list, and then other companies can buy it. But there's companies out there like Dole, Chiquita. I think they both have their own lettuce brands. They have their own like packaging lines, and they've been competing with Taylor Farms and trying to get market share from them for years. So again, there's all these independent lettuce farms that Taylor Farms and Dole and Chiquita all source from. Dole and Chiquita might have an easy. Taylor Farms is going to have a hard time selling lettuce, and so the farms that grow it for them are going to look for another customer. And Dole, Chiquita, Tannemer, and Antle, anybody else who's selling lettuce, all these other brands are going to have an easier time getting their lettuce sold. So, I don't know, like as a retail customer, that is the position where it is literally the hardest to find out where the source came from, right? This is something where wholesale buyers are going to have a lot easier time. I was just example here. I was just at Sam's Club. All of their bagged salads are from Taylor Farms. What kind of disconnect? Like there's nothing even happening on. That's Walmart for you, man. Try Costco next time. Allegedly, in my opinion, we have to say this to avoid lawsuits, right? In my opinion, in my experience as well, Costco has a really good food safety program, which is not to say they never get involved in an outbreak, but they're very responsive to it. They're a lot more proactive. They're more on the Taco Bell end of things than the Taylor Farms end of things. We'll say that. And they actually go out and check on the farms that they buy from. So if you're really concerned, like especially if you have immunocompromised people in your household and you need to make sure that the lettuce you are buying is not coming from Taylor Farms, or at least Taylor Farms has cleaned up their act before they start selling again, Costco is actually a really great option because they are laser focused on this. Um, like people kind of associate Costco with like low cost discount, crappy, whatever, but that is actually not how they work at all. They save a lot of money um, running their stores because they do wholesale style compared to a lot of retailers, which means they have a lot of money they're not spending on running a fancy storefront. And they actually spend that money making sure they have good products. So, if you really have to make sure that you're getting lettuce that is clean, safe, yada yada, um, Costco is an actually a really decent option. I've never worked for Costco. They don't pay me for sponsorships or anything because they don't have to. I actually just like Costco, and so I'll talk them up for free. Um, yeah, Costco is also like a 120-mile round trip for me because I live in a military town, and so most of the people who would show up at a Costco just shop at like the military, the PDX, and so we don't have a Costco anywhere near here, but we shop from there when we can. If we take a trip up to the Triangle, we stop at Costco when we're there. Um, let's see. Yeah, don't make fun of other viewers. Ah, yeah, Costco can be tough to work as a small household. I will say we have a tiny little house, and there's still some things we can manage to buy from there. It's you don't have to bulk purchase everything. They do have kind of normal retail containers of a lot of things. Um, like you can get shredded cheese, and it's in a 1 or 2 pound bag, which is we make a lot of quesadillas, so we can work our way through that, even though we're in a tiny household with only 2 or 3 people in it, depending on the week. Um, all hail the mothership. That's Costco. Yeah. The quick thing about Costco. So back when I was a food safety auditor, Costco had this program where they would send out their own auditors with you every once in a while to like spot check both the place you're inspecting and also the auditor. Are we doing a good job? Costco would actually send their own people out to check in on us. And you would think this is a nerve wracking experience. And it kind of was. You're like, oh my God. I'm always trying my best. And what you really don't want is you've been spending months auditing and thinking you're doing your best and you're doing a good job, only for Costco guys to show up and be like, oh, what are you doing? You're doing this all wrong, right? So that's kind of what I was nervous about. You got a little bit of like auditor imposter syndrome. And then the only thing that I really ran into that they're like, hey, and they didn't even go like, oh, you're doing this wrong. They're just like, oh, hey, flashlight. Do you have a flashlight? Because I was traveling, I was on the road all the time. I'm constantly at that point driving or flying long distances across like rural parts of the United States to get from one facility to another because they're out in the boonies, right? And finding a flashlight that is small enough to fit in a carry-on bag without really weighing you down, powerful enough to see into like the dark crannies of a food facility, and also rugged enough that you can be banging it around in your baggage and it doesn't fall apart. I could not find a flashlight that would do that. And so this guy from Costco, Nathan Baggio, who's now head of Costco's food safety division, he actually hooked me up. He was like, okay, here's the brand you need. And it works really, really well. And it was like a small, petite flashlight that was incredibly powerful. And it didn't fall apart in my baggage, even though getting banged around, for months and months on end. So like Costco has good people, and they actually want to help you out. If you're working in the food system, they're not out there to be like, you're bad at this, you're not a professional. They will actually hook you up and help you out. And now that guy who helped me out and hooked me up when I was like kind of still learning the food safety auditing game is now in charge of Costco's food safety. So that was kind of fun. That's a Costco story. We're coming up on our hour, you guys. I don't want to make these take too long because then like it's just too much news update to get through. All right, we're going to quick go through. So the Taco Bell and Taylor Farms response, we've talked about this a little bit. They are different. What is going on there? And also Taylor Farms' response is really different from how they used to do it. So what's going on there? This is a question that's getting more into psychology than like the science stuff that I actually know. So I don't want to speculate too much. I will say, I think a lot of companies just kind of feel like we're in a political environment where it's easier to get away with stuff now. So why would they try hard? Again, that's just speculation. That's just what I'm guessing. Another thing that Taylor Farms is doing that is interesting, and I haven't seen a lot of people talk about this yet, but I've seen other farms do it. And other very conservative farms do it. This is the thing that like very conservative, don't like their customers farms tend to do. Uh, when you get involved in an incident like this, where you wind up in the news in a negative way, as a larger farm with lots of money and deep pockets, you were going to get sued like crazy. So there's a couple different ways to respond to that and kind of try to preempt that or just handle the PR crisis, right? What you should do, in my opinion, is hire a PR person, because what you need to do as a company is take responsibility. And a PR person can help you do that. They can help you go, hey, out of an abundance of caution, we're going to be proactive, right? We really feel bad that people are getting sick. We don't necessarily know if it's us yet, but we are going to act as if it is just in case. A PR person can help you figure that out and help you figure out how to at least act like you want to take responsibility and be a positive actor in this world. PR firms and PR people can help you with that. Taylor Farms and some other farms that I've seen are not doing that. They have their public communications person be a lawyer. They're skipping PR and they're going straight to, we are going to prosecute this and we are going to have someone acting as our defense attorney in the court of public opinion. They will never say we're being proactive because lawyers don't know what that is. I'm sure some of them do, but that's not the kind of lawyers these people are hiring. These companies and farms are hiring lawyers to say, this definitely wasn't us, as if they're already in a trial, as if they're already making the case. And when you're a lawyer, when you're representing somebody in court as a defense attorney, you never say just in case, right? You don't talk about maybe this was us, here's how we're going to be proactive. You strictly make the case that it definitely wasn't us. And that's all you're going to say. And I'm seeing a lot of farms start to employ that tactic when they start to get in PR trouble. And that is an interesting move because yeah, if you get caught actually doing it and that's been your only response, there's going to be a world of hurt. Like you were just not prepared. If you actually get found out to have been the cause, you have done nothing to take responsibility. You've done nothing to try and stop the outbreak. So this is something Taylor Farms did was, I think when FDA notified them or Taco Bell notified them that like, you may have a problem, Taylor Farms spent 60 hours dickering with the FDA or Taco Bell or whoever notified them instead of starting a recall. Taylor Farms didn't start doing a recall until FDA and CDC had already announced, we think it's these guys. That is not normally what happens. You want to start the recall before federal agencies point the finger at you because they wait to do that until they have a lot of evidence. At that point, doing a recall is too late. That is guilty behavior, right? And there's a saying that we have in food safety when I was coaching farms and food companies on how to handle it and prepare for this kind of stuff, right? Because you got to do drills, right? You can't just walk your way through life and then one day you find out you have to do a recall and you have no idea how to do one. No, you want to do drills before you actually have to do one. So I'd walk people through drills and, the drill of how to do a recall, but also how to decide it's time to do a recall. So we have a saying in food safety, there is no such thing as the right time to do a recall. There's only too early and too late, right? Too early is when you pull the trigger on a recall before you know it's actually you. Right? It might be us. We don't know. Out of an abundance of caution, we're doing a recall just in case. You are sacrificing a lot of product and you're going to throw it away and you're going to lose the money from selling that. But you're doing that preemptively just in case it turns out to be you because you're going to stop the bleeding. You're going to stop more people from getting sick. And also people know you're trying to be responsible. That counts for a lot. And you are minimizing your exposure risk. You're minimizing the number of people who can get sick, and you're minimizing the number of lawsuits you're going to get slapped with. That's too early. If you start the recall early, out of an abundance of caution. The only other way to do a recall, besides too early, is too late. Once you already know for sure it's you, and then you decide to do a recall, or even worse, you already know it's you, and you still wait hours or days until a federal agency names you, and everyone knows it was you. That is way too late. Here, we have somebody here. The FDA recanted after Taylor Farms visited the White House and apologized to Taylor Farms. That's not what happened. The FDA did not apologize, and they did not recant. The FDA just made a note, hey, we talked about this earlier in the live stream, and people come and go, so you might not have seen this part. The FDA did one test on lettuce that wasn't even involved in the outbreak. It was coming in to the U.S. from Taylor Farms' Mexico locations, and they were testing because the stuff that actually caused the outbreak came into the U.S. weeks or maybe a month ago, right? So you can't test the lettuce that actually caused the outbreak because it's already all been eaten. So the FDA was just intercepting more of Taylor Farms' lettuce as it came across the border and doing some extra testing on that just in case. They got a positive, and then they were like, maybe it wasn't a positive. And then Taylor Farms, like that's all FDA said was, hey, this extra lettuce that we thought we had a positive on, maybe we didn't. It was Taylor Farms' lawyer. So we're just talking about how they're doing their PR through a lawyer. Their lawyer came in and said, see, this exonerates us and we're innocent. And it proves it. It did not. It did not at all, because all the trace back that we have still says it was Taylor Farms. So we talked a little bit earlier in the live stream about the main way we usually find an outbreak is not through testing. It is through who ate what, finding out what the common thread is and tracing it back to its source. And once you find kind of, if there's a bunch of people ate at Taco Bell and they all ate at the Taco Bells, they got their lettuce from this one place and they all ate things that had lettuce in it, and all that lettuce came from this one farm, then it was probably that one farm. That's really where your evidence in outbreaks usually comes from, especially for lettuce, because it goes bad before you know people are sick and before you can test it. So that's right. Lawyers don't know how science works, only legal precedent. So have I talked about the second outbreak yet? So we're coming up on our hour already, and it's pretty clear there are almost certainly multiple Cyclospora cluster outbreaks going on right now. So here in North Carolina, if you're a North Carolinian watching this, our Cyclospora that we're having here locally, our terroir is from, it looks to be lettuce, not lettuce. It's not basil, it's parsley. It's parsley and cilantro seems to be the source of North Carolina's Cyclospora. So if you're in North Carolina, we've got some local stores that are getting their parsley and their cilantro from something that's a little Cyclospora-y. It used to be very common to have just Cyclospora outbreaks all summer long, and then we had a few decades where we had good public health. We had clean drinking water. People washed their hands. We weren't pooping in the fields. And that time has come to a close, apparently. We are having having a lot of Cyclospora in this nation at this moment. Oh, thanks, Dragon, just for poops and giggles. Thanks for that. You came to the right place. We've been having growing outbreaks of Cyclospora in the summer. So this is not a new thing in 2026. Part of it is our detection has gotten better, but also we've just been having more Cyclospora in the US. It used to be only on imported produce. And then in 2018, we had our first Cyclospora outbreak that definitely came from a domestic source. And we've kind of just been having more and more domestic Cyclospora outbreaks, just more Cyclospora outbreaks in the US, kind of mixed between imported and domestic sourcing. We've just been having more and more of that in the summer. Like it's kind of a summer thing. Back in the day before we had good public sanitation, it was very normal, especially for children, to just get a lot of diarrhea every summer. They called it summer complaint because we're classy, because it's the 1800s and we don't talk about that. They don't call it diarrhea. They called it summer complaint. And that used to be normal. That was what normal was like. And that's why like half of children died before the age of 5. They just pooped themselves to death because we had no public sanitation. So I feel like it's really easy. I say this in live streams a lot. It's really easy to feel like diarrhea is a new problem because things are falling apart. We're kind of just going back to normal, guys. Diarrhea outbreaks every summer is the normal for people. Yeah. So this is what happened. Like we had it too good for too long, guys, and we forgot that sanitation was good for something. This is just how biology works. When you don't have good wastewater treatment, you don't have bathrooms for farm workers, and you have companies that aren't being real on top of things. So, yeah. That is an interesting. I grew up Mormon, and that's an interesting fallout of having grown up Mormon. They make us do a lot of genealogy, and you get to know your ancestors and how many kids shat themselves to death, and you like had like a great aunt or something who died of diphtheria at the age of 6, and it kind of crushed her parents like emotionally for the rest of their lives. Like it broke them in some ways, and because it was the 1800s, they just kept having kids and kept having kids. And then I think their youngest daughter dies of tuberculosis at the age of 18. And so she's buried next to her 6-year-old sister that she never met. And that's what life was like. And we talk about the good old days, we don't talk about that part because these parents who lost their kids like that didn't want to talk about it. It was traumatizing to watch your kid strangle to death with diphtheria. That's how it kills you. It grows a membrane across your throat, you can't breathe, and you just watch your kid rattle to death. People didn't want to talk about that. And so they didn't, and we don't want to talk about it because we haven't seen it and it's unpleasant to think about. And that's how we get here. Well, that's fun. Let's see. Do we have any comments we want to catch up on? Yeah, I think we're good to go. We got some Oregon Trail situation going on here. Homegrown is safe as long as you don't poop in your garden, true or not. You also need to not have your neighbors or wildlife pooping in your garden. Cyclospora only comes from human feces, but there's other delightful things that can grow in there. If you got raccoons, cats, dogs, coyotes, birds pooping in your garden, and everyone poops. That's the crazy thing. People are like, homegrown is fine, right? And you're like, everyone poops. So homegrown can be great. You just, also have to keep critters out of it. That's an interesting dynamic here. I have the farm, which is 20 minutes away, and then I've got my garden here at home. And people got their pets running around. Sometimes it's harder to keep the home garden clean than it is to keep the farm clean, just because of that. So, just something to keep in mind. I'm not saying homegrown is nasty, but you have to work to keep it clean, just like everything else. It's kind of like if I'm at home, I don't have to wash my hands. That's kind of like the the level of, are you sure about that? Yeah, everyone poops everywhere. So that's bobcats. Oh, bobcats are fun, but yeah, they probably they poop. That's the crazy thing about living in sandy soil, and I'm gonna let you guys go. This is the crazy thing about living in sandy soil is if you have stray cats outside, anytime you clear some ground and exposes sand, the stray cats in the neighborhood are like, oh, for me, a bathroom? Thank you. And that can make gardening very complicated. So look out for that. Those are your thoughts for today. If you put down compost, they're less excited about pooping there because it's not sand and they don't think, oh, that's a bathroom for me. Happy Friday. All right, guys, this has been fun. I want to let you go because it's Friday night. And I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has been useful. And, my gosh, I can't wait to see what's going to happen next week. This has been a very eventful week in diarrhea news. And I think we're still waiting to find out which farm exactly in Mexico this came from and like what went on that farm. Was it someone on the farm got sick? They didn't have bathrooms? Was it like a broader water supply issue? Because if it's a broader water supply issue, then a lot of people in Mexico are also getting sick and they're going to have an outbreak that they have to deal with. And that's like a whole thing. Also, like, did it come from water or a worker? It's kind of chicken or egg, if the water's contaminated, it had to happen somehow, definitely spreads in water real good though. Hot diarrhea summer. This has been fun, you guys. Thanks for dropping in and happy Friday. Have a good night.